So this summer, the Royal United Services Institute Future of Financial Intelligence Sharing Research Programme published a survey report, 5 years of growth in public-private financial information sharing partnerships to tackle crime. I'm delighted that Sune Warberg Clausen, Head of Suspicious Activity Reporting, and Ross George Pudney, both from Danske Bank, are here on the line to talk about the Swedish model, which has generated quite a lot of interest and excitement from stakeholders. So the Swedish Anti-Money Laundering Intelligence Taskforce, or SAMLIT. Delighted you can join us today.
Thanks.
Thanks very much.
Fantastic. Well, why don't we just kick off, and perhaps you could just tell us a little bit more about SAMLIT. What are the key objectives for SAMLIT?
So basically, SAMLIT is a public-private partnership in cooperation between the five biggest banks in Sweden and the police. And the main purpose is, of course, to try to have better cooperation and information sharing between the public sector and the private sector. Starting with looking into how we can create investigation in the banks based on intelligence from the police.
And what threats are you going after? Are there priority threats for you within SAMLIT?
So SAMLIT's been established to tackle the following threats: to target organized and complex money laundering networks and active terrorist financing networks, and that's sort of our primary focus in the initial stages of this partnership.
And how does the format work? SAMLIT's interesting, of course, because it's operational, entity level sharing as well as strategic. Can you talk us through the format of the SAMLIT meetings?
Yeah, of course. So sort of starting at the bottom and working our way up, we have an operational intelligence group, which is responsible for effectively doing the day-to-day investigation support and communication. So every 2 weeks, representatives from all the partners of this initiative, plus the law enforcement agencies, get together in a controlled environment, and we discuss high-profile investigation work that needs to be done, and effectively the banks are tasked with being asked to provide sort of deep dive intelligence on subjects of interest that are part of the investigation. And this is sort of an iterative process. So the information that we provide in the sort of period of time between the operational intelligence group setup is used for the police to be able to sort of start stitching the networks together and identify whether there are either any additional subject of interest they want to focus on or any specific lines of investigation that they want to sort of then prioritize for the next meeting with the operational group. Yeah? And as part of those, then the banks themselves get some feedback on what's happening, so that we are then able to identify sort of emergent threats potentially for us that we can then respond to quicker than we might be able to do before. So that's the operational intelligence group, and then sort of above that are the operations committee, and they're responsible effectively for the running and prioritization of the operational intelligence group. So we do the identification of current and emergent money laundering threats and sort of the themes that are coming out of it, and we sort of coordinate the governance, let's say, of the sort of day-to-day working. And then finally, there's a steering committee at this point, and the steering committee is senior management and senior representatives of all partners within this organization, and they're responsible for the prioritization and oversight of all SAMLIT activities, and also the coordination of all information that's coming through to us to sort of distill that into key actions for the next 6 months, next year.
Very interesting. And with all these partnerships, membership varies across jurisdictions. Can you talk us through, who are the members, particularly on the public sector side, for SAMLIT? How do they work together?
So I think for the member side, so it's the five largest banks in Sweden. So that's Nordea, Danske, Handelsbanken, SEB, and Swedbank. And then on the public side is the police, so the Swedish police. We have one point of entry there. So that's the members. And what I think is a bit interesting here is that we actually are trying to use the existing regulation and set up for example, SAR filing, which means that it's been quite easily to set this up compared to what we have seen in other market areas.
And in terms of the FIU and the supervisor, what's the intention in terms of the connection to those institutions?
So the FIU is of course a part of the Swedish police, and we use the infrastructure of SAR filing to give the input from the investigation to the Swedish police. So of course the FIU is a part of this cooperation.
Fantastic. In terms of the resourcing, is it very much, as most partnerships are at the start, is it done through volunteerism and side of desk activity? Can you talk us through how the partnership is resourced?
Yeah, so definitely it is. So it's running it all together. We are delivering the people. So basically there is no funding between the banks. We are just delivering the resources or the people that's needed to run this project.
And has that been a challenge, to come to that agreement? Obviously, it's extra resource for people in addition to the main regulatory requirements as well. Has that been a challenge to get people together, without extra resource?
So far, I don't think it has been. I think actually that has been a quite good backup from everyone. Everybody really wants this to succeed. So I think it has been working very well and quite swiftly, to be honest.
And then I guess looking forward, it's an early partnership. It's a leading partnership, obviously, in the region. What are your next steps over the next 6 months? Where would you like to see the partnership get to?
So I think the next steps for us ultimately are that we've initiated the pilot, and that's been running for the last couple of months. We're getting some very positive feedback out of that, and we recently just had our first steerco post the commencement of the Operational Intelligence Group, where we got a lot of really positive feedback from the members, and ultimately we sort of see this progressing in a very sort of positive light. The next 6 months sort of objectives for us are to continue the Operational Intelligence Group and sort of build and iron out any of the sort of initial niggles effectively that we need to work through in terms of sort of how we share the information, what information we share, and that type of stuff. Although these are tiny issues that we're having to face, and everything has worked pretty great, actually, to be honest. But on top of that, the idea is that we would like to start targeting starting to collate all of this operational intelligence we're capturing into more themes, strategic themes, so that we can sort of identify emergent threats to the region that we can then, as banks, start looking at responses to internally. I mentioned that a little bit earlier before, but one of the key sort of objectives for us out of all of this is to ensure that we are able to respond to financial crime threat much faster and much more efficiently than we have been able to before. So we would like to set up a strategic working group, which operates in the same way as the operational intelligence group, but looks at the sort of broader patterns of behavior that we're seeing, so that we can then identify sort of controls and policies that we could all communally implement. We're also pushing for the sort of engagement with law enforcement agencies, but also the government as well, to sort of look at ways in which we can facilitate better data sharing initiatives, so that we can sort of communicate better between the group and operate a bit more effectively, and also generating a more mature function. So sort of having a more structured delivery secretariat that sort of underpins our ability to execute this work, and publishing the output of our results ultimately to a broader group of users.
Very interesting. And I do have to say, you've received a lot of interest around the world, but particularly from the South Africans who claim, first ownership over the acronym SAMLIT. So you have a healthy rivalry there, perhaps, with another partnership. Ross, Sune, thank you so much for your time today. And we look forward to working with you and obviously supporting, as we can, the knowledge exchange process between partnerships. But thank you very much for your time today to tell us more about SAMLIT. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you.